start like this. At departure, it could look like this. And the destination, it could be like this. We could still do this. Or simply this. It might seem a bit more complicated than before, but trust us, it could also be easy. Because traveling safe does not mean enjoy less. It means enjoy, respect.
Good morning, everyone. Now it's better, no? So, dear Secretary General, dear ministers, dear UNWTO team, dear high-level delegates, dear entrepreneurs, investors, it's our pleasure to be here today to talk about the new normal and how do we have a new era of opportunities for a more sustainable growth. As you know, innovation has been our key driver to create a more sustainable tourism. And now more than ever, we need the commitment and to join forces between the private and the public sector. With that said, today, because as you can see, we are fitting all the protocols, we have a streaming today. Hundreds of people are listening to our forum because to us, to the UNWTO, and of course to the Secretary General and to the Georgian Minister and to all the delegates that are here today, investments is a key priority if we want to create a more sustainable tourism. So of course, as you know, we will have official translation to our 5 official languages. And with that said, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Natia Turnava, the Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development of Georgia, who will do the opening welcome remarks. So let's give an applause.
Your Excellency Secretary General, dear Zurab, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning everyone, first of all. I hope that you had enjoyed yesterday evening and had a chance to walk around a bit. Let me welcome you all to this important event aimed at identifying effective solutions and exploring opportunities for further investment attraction. I am convinced that the meeting will be fruitful, covering all the issues related to further recovery of the tourism. I herewith would like to highlight that before the pandemic outbreak and the worldwide crisis, the sector represented 8% of the GDP of Georgia and was one of the fastest growing industries in my country. In 2019, Georgia surpassed a record mark of more than 9.3 million international arrivals to the country, exceeding the 2018 result by almost 8%. Considering the fact that we are just 3.7 million population country, we hosted about 3 times greater number of international visitors than our own population is. From a statistical viewpoint, the performance of the tourism industry in Georgia in 2019 can be characterized as a period of growth. In 2019, there were a total of 2,575 accommodation units, comprising about 95,000 beds. Moreover, during 2019-2020, the projects worth 110 million USD has been finalized, aimed at the development of tourism infrastructure. All of this significantly contributed to the prosperity and more opportunities for the people and the vibrant economy of Georgia. The tourism industry in our country has been affected as a result of the crisis caused by the pandemic. As a response, the government prepared an economic stimulus package to confront the negative impact of the economy. The measures include infrastructure spending and tax exemptions to benefit Georgia's recently blooming tourism industry. After the lockdown, the hotel market of Georgia is on its initial stage of recovery and is mainly driven by domestic tourism. Furthermore, Georgia's key performance indicators such as average daily rate of hotels and revenues per available rooms over recent years have been competitive with the booming Western European countries. We had maintained a steady growth of tourism inflows, creating business opportunities in yet and unsaturated destinations for all 4 seasons. I would like to highlight the importance of state support for keeping this sector attractive for new investments as well. Our state support program, Host in Georgia, which co-financed hotel development loans and franchise fees, was immediately restructured so that the business can have access to the program for an extended period of time. With this, 129 hotels have already been financed within the country, 3,300 new workplaces established, and the total involved investment exceeded 130 million USD. It is noteworthy that even during this restrictive period of 2020, we had supported 10 new hotel investment projects throughout Georgia. There are also international investors who have in the last 3 months continued their development projects and thus will plan to meet the increased post-COVID demands with the brand new hotels. Taking into consideration the global critical situation, there is still an increasing demand for visiting Georgia as a tourism as well as a business destination, thanks to the timely safety measures taken by the government. To this point, with the aim of boosting Georgia's economy and supporting the sector, we introduced various initiatives. For example, in the framework of the very successful project Remotely from Georgia, we attract freelancers and the self-employed to live and work in Georgia as a way to stimulate the economy and gradually reopen borders in line with strict safety norms and health protocols. It will take time to return to something we all recognize as normal. However, as we have seen, there are plenty of scenarios that could come into play which offer the opportunity to innovate and improve the travel experience for us all. Virtual initiatives are encouraging people to connect to the world around them. Moreover, technology brings a range of smart tools to support us. COVID-19 has accelerated the use of digital tools, and therefore, travelers will be more familiar with applications and digital support mechanisms. Smart techniques and methodologies will enable us to operate differently, remotely, and more safely. We need to explore more opportunities and to be prepared for post-COVID era. We need to support tourism system in more detail and use smart and agile tourism methodologies in real time to manage tourism and hospitality organizations and destinations. Today, we have a great opportunity to share the experience and knowledge to achieve further prosperity, create new ideas and success stories. To this end, I firmly believe that within each person lies the potential capacity to reshape the world of tomorrow. And our jobs at the government, private sector, and investors is to unite our efforts and support the tourism industry as well as to stimulate our economies. Thank you very much, and I wish you very fruitful discussions and joyful stay in Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We are really aligned because, as you know, our Secretary General is a techie, so he's really committed on innovation, entrepreneurship, and, of course, digital skills, and now more than ever, we need to improve that, so count on us. So now let's give the floor to our Secretary General, Zurab Pololikashvili, who will do his open remarks as well.
Thank you, Natalia. Good morning to everyone. Buenos dias. Salam alaikum. Bonjour. Dobre utro. Gamar jubat. For me, it's a pleasure to make it happen. And we are talking these last 2 days that we are living in very hard and very uncertain moment. It's very weird and very strange the time touched tourism. Tourism is today in very big troubles, I will be very honest, and all of us we know, last 3-4 years, and I think it's very interesting today to talk about where UNWTO is going to act and to focus more next, like a long-term period, at the same time, next 2-3 years. So started 2.5 years when I entered to the office. With my team, we started to try, because it wasn't before like a tradition, to make this kind of events in parallel of our Executive Council, which is more institutional body. It's more institutional body for our organization, and the idea always is and was to put in the same hall private sector and public sector. I see many friends from Georgia, and for me it's really pleasure and honor to organize this investment forum in Tbilisi. Why? Because this is first time that after pandemic we made happen meeting of ministers, not only tourism ministers, because it's not normal to make presential meetings, and this is first time that even in UN organizations we are doing this kind of event. I want to tell to my Georgian friends and my Georgian colleagues who represents private sector that in this hall we have ministers from Iran, Congo, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Georgian minister, you know, and I want to thank you again, Natia, for excellent organization of this 2-3 days, which will be unbelievable for our guests, I hope so. I will come to you, Minister of Agriculture, my dear friend Levan, because we have a lot of things to do, especially in rural part. State Secretary from Portugal, another brilliant example for tourism. Vice Minister, our dear friend Daniel from Brazil. Natalia, I promised to Colombian President that you will be next Minister of Economy of Colombia. So why I'm telling you, because I want to use this opportunity to talk with ministers. They have excellent vision and much more experience than I have, but let's use this floor and these 3 or 4 hours to discuss and to think together how we are going to act in this very uncertain situation. Dear Minister of Agriculture, your presence is very important today, and why? Because we announced just before pandemic 2020 like year of rural tourism development, and our idea was and is to support new destinations, especially in rural areas, for only one reason. As UN organization, our job is to create new jobs. And this is the best recipe and fastest recipe to create new jobs in the rural part of the and regional development of the one of every of our countries. And we discussed a lot with ministers, and the situation now more or less the same. I forgot to represent also Spanish quite relevant delegation. Spain, and as our headquarters is located in Spain, is one of the best examples in tourism, and we are going to start with Spanish government, and today we will present the plan how we are going to develop new villages. And talking about villages and rural destinations, I'm always reminded, of course, Georgia, because Georgia can be another pilot place where we can support villages and new destinations to be popular, to be more visited. And pandemic show us that in every country, first what will develop and restart the tourism is domestic tourism. People started to discover new places. People started to travel inside of countries because they are scared. There is no connectivity. They are scared to travel. Many restrictions, quarantines, borders are closed, and as we see, domestic tourism is booming now. I just came from official visit from Saudi Arabia, and we visited places which many Saudis they even don't know, and I want to thank Minister of Saudi Arabia, which is very supportive in that case. And if I may, Minister, maybe I can announce, because I see many interesting people in this hall, we are going to create special fund to support new villages all around the world. This will be, I think, revolutionary project for people who are living and who can live with the income in the rural part. Who we are and what is our role, like UNWTO. We are preparing, and I think in 1.5 months we will have the final guidelines how to create new destinations, how to make it real, not only just to go there and to make photos. We will give concrete receipts how villages has to act, align with governments to create new destinations, and then we are going to give recognition from our side with some concrete standards to these places. And maybe starting from here in 1 year, 1.5 years, we can have at least 100, 200. Minister is telling that 2,000, but let's see. It's not easy. New destinations recognized by UNWTO. UNESCO is our sister organization. I don't want to compete with them, but my vision is that if some places are recognized by tourists, that means that it does not mean any recognition from other UN or non-UN organizations. So the main idea is to support, again, rural development, and we will focus a lot in this part. Talking about innovation, innovation became main part of tourism. 95% of our trips are organized by digital platforms and digital products, and of course we want to take innovation in the rural part. And the third most important pillar will be, of course, education. We need more educated professionals. We need more competitive sector. And also we are going to make a big announcement, and very soon we will have quite interesting, quite strong UNWTO Academy, which will support, and especially will focus how to create special knowledge in the rural part. Of course, I don't want to miss this opportunity to announce that with Instituto de Empresa, which is very popular in Georgia because we have many friends who, and in this hall, they studied there, we already have online platform, our UNWTO EA online academy, but we want to invest more to increase the number of products, and very soon I think this will be first and one of the strongest online education worldwide. So today we have many interesting panelists, many interesting guests, as I mentioned already, and let's start. Let's think together how to support rural development and how to create new destinations. And we will be back, Minister, to you once we have concrete vision and strategy how to make it. And I'm sure that Georgia can be another nice place to invest, another nice place to be with its diversity, with its culture, with its gastronomy, and I'm sure that we will be back. We wanted to make this forum 10 times bigger, but again, because of pandemic, it was impossible. Unfortunately, many of our guests could not travel, and but again, I'm sure that after this crisis, we will be back. You Georgians have to come and to be more active, I think, in our events, and I'm so happy to see you in this all together. And we never saw world as united like it was during this last 6 months, especially in tourism. And we really made a fantastic job. We had our crisis committee, which gave already guidelines to governments, and our main message from the very beginning was to support private sector. Who is most affected from all this horror story is private sector, and we always are asking to governments to support private sector with liquidity and to support with financial support. So I know that it's costly, it's not easy, but we still want to support private sector because people who are working in the business and in the sector, we're talking about millions of jobs are still under risk, and our job is to, and our duty is to be close to them. So many thanks for your attention, many thanks for your patience, and wish you fruitful and interesting investment forum.
Thank you, Secretary General. And now, let's begin. Why, this is my question since March, why innovation and sustainability has to be our new normal? So, here, when the pandemic started, of course, we have done a lot of things, as Secretary General said, regarding innovation, entrepreneurship, sustainability, but now more than ever, of course, we need them in order to create a more sustainable tourism and, of course, to help on the tourism recovery. So, this reminds me 2.5 years ago when the innovation department inside the UNWTO was created. And it was created with an aim. Our main objective since 2.5 years ago was to create the global tourism ecosystem, to join together the 6 key actors of innovation that are investors, corporates, startups, the academia, the institutions, and of course, all the entrepreneurs that are working together to help us to travel better and of course, to give an excellent experience to tourists. That's why we created this. This is our UNWTO portfolio. So, of course, regarding innovation, what we do is we have our flagship program that are the startup competitions. We run innovation challenges. We run the tourism tech adventures that are our innovation forums where we bring together those 6 actors. And of course, we have a UNWTO innovation network. Regarding digital transformation, where we are. Last year, as you know, we created the Tourism Online Academy, as the Secretary General said. And believe it or not, we have increased by 400% the number of students during the pandemic. So now we have almost 10,000 students from more than 100 nationalities that are interested in studying tourism to get a better future and to get, of course, a better understanding of our tourism sector. Second of all, we are working to create a job factory in order to help others to create added value jobs and to preserve the millions of jobs that are in risk today. We have created with Google the first UNWTO Google Acceleration Program to help governments to improve their digital skills. and to help entrepreneurs to grow, starting in Africa. And last but not least, regarding investments, that is what we are talking today about, we have guidelines and reports. Unfortunately, our Financial Times partner couldn't come, but we have launched the second guidelines on foreign direct investments, and the next week we will send you the first UNWTO investments guidelines, not only regarding traditional investments. We are working, of course, on innovative investments. So the next week, we will, in our social media and in our website, you will find them for everybody. And this is unique because, believe it or not, in the past, we didn't have data and investments guidelines to do some strong alliances with the private sector and to see where we are and, of course, what type of investments are coming through the regions. Of course, we have the investment network. We work with more than 300 investors all around the world to connect ministers and or governments and private sector and to build new business opportunities to everyone. So thanks to the Secretary General and, of course, his alliance with the private sector, we have helped with more than $51 million to our entrepreneurs only in 2.5 years to help them to grow. And on the other side, we are working actively with different strong projects. One is in Spain regarding rural tourism, another in tourism and health in Colombia, another one is focused in Rwanda to open a strong airport. So we're building together step by step new business opportunities in order to help investments and foreign direct investment, of course, in different parts of the world, and multilateral investment cooperation, of course. So, as I already said, we have more than 7,000 startups in our pipeline, 7,000 innovators from all around the world that knows how to create a better tourism and a better understanding for all. So, of course, we have done a specialized startup competitions on gastronomy, on sports, on rural tourism. So this year we did a pilot in Spain, and believe it or not, more than 150 applicants applied to the competition, but 40% of them were led by women. So that's amazing because if we help rural tourism, we are helping as well gender equality. This is one of the most amazing ventures that thank, of course, to one of my colleagues, Soritza, that is here. That is, she was pushing me since the beginning. She's like SDGs ambassador inside the UNWTO. So she began pushing me and she was saying, Natalia, everything is amazing, but what about the Sustainable Development Goals? So today, we launched the Sustainable Development Goals startup competition with our partner in crime, that is Globalia. So here we have the Vice President of Globalia. And believe it or not, only in 3 weeks, we have 3 times more applications rather than the other startup competitions. Today, we have only in this competition 4,500 applicants, and it's still open from more than 150 countries. Here, it's the first time that we did a Champions League, so Google, Mastercard, Plug and Play, Amazon are working here because after this competition ends, the private sector will mentor those entrepreneurs to grow, and the private sector, the big companies, are working with us in order to help those entrepreneurs to scale up their ventures to different parts of the world. This is very important. As I already said, the Secretary General is techie himself, so he's always pushing us. So this photo reminds me some months ago where events were not possible. So we developed the first Healing Solutions Challenge and a specialized challenge to recover tourism again. Thanks to this, with the support of the WHO, the World Bank for the first time helped us as part of the jury. Believe it or not, we worked with the top 10. And those 10 entrepreneurs are working, for example, the entrepreneur from the US is working with the Department of State, with Mike Pompeo directly, to open the borders of the US. Second of all, we have the Spanish one, received $2 million from the Spanish government as part of the support in order to scale up the venture. And I can keep talking and talking and talking about how governments and private sector can work together. But as Secretary General said, our job inside the UNWTO is to be doors openers and to open doors between private and public sector in order to build a more sustainable tourism. So, as you can see, we have the Minister of Brazil that was pushing as well to develop a startup competition focused in Brazil. I don't know if you know, but we received more than 1,000 applications from all the regions of Brazil. Only in Brazil, we have a pipeline of 1,000 entrepreneurs that are working with new technologies to build a better tourism. We work with the International Development Bank, and thanks to them, we gave funding between $500,000 to $2 million to Latin American ventures that are working on climate change, focus on tourism, sustainability, and social impact on tourism. Of course, we are working with Anita Mendirata that is here, and we launched an Africa Challenge with CNN in order to create the next tourism promotional campaign for Africa and to rebuild Africa again. We did the Hospitality Challenge with Le Roche, as you know. It's top university in the world in hospitality, and we are, for the first time, Secretary General and the CEO of Le Roche are giving 30 full scholarships to the 30 top solutions in the world to study top masters in Le Roche, $7,000 per winner to develop their venture, and 100% housing. So that's, as Secretary General said, we want to act, we want to be pragmatic, and of course, we want to work and to make this happen. So we are working with more than 100 universities, with more than 200 investors, with 200 governments, more than 200 governments, national and regional governments, more than 400 companies worldwide, and more than 7,000 startups. So, as I already said, for example, we helped one to raise $9.8 million. Airside is the one working with Secretary of State of the US to open US. So with that said, why innovation and sustainability have to be the new normal? This is crucial. Sandra that is here, she knows better than me. She is the person behind all this data in the UNWTO. Our future and our present, of course, is not easy. Because, of course, we have seen our scenario, and unfortunately, our borders have been closed. And this is true as well. We need $6.9 trillion if we want to reach infrastructure investment and to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. And of course, the current gap is getting stronger thanks to the pandemic. This is very important because, of course, we had challenges before COVID-19. The challenges that tourism had in the past are accelerated today. Digital skills are accelerated, so it's urgent to have them. To address over-tourism is urgent because, of course, before it was a challenge. Now, we have to mind this gap because, as you can see, the whole years, year by year, tourists was coming, and of course, look at this. There were social externalities regarding the number of tourists increasing and increasing. This is a case of Barcelona, 1.6 million people, and of course, they received 30 million, but now they don't receive no one, so we need to help them. 40% of the marine litter in the Mediterranean increased only in summer. And of course, we expect to increase by 100% the emissions regarding airlines. So of course, this is Soritzas as well. We are the largest economy value chain. Why? Because tourism, as always, in their declaration, Secretary General says, tourism is not only about sun and beach. Tourism is about infrastructure, it's about financial services, it's about trade, it's about construction, it's about food. So if we help to recover tourism, we are helping, of course, the other parts of the economy to grow as well and to give opportunities to everyone because we are really transversal. But this is the most important thing to me. Why innovation has to be addressed more than ever. When you see the top technological companies in the world, only 5% of those top technological companies belong to tourism. So we have a scenario of 95% more if we want to grow. And if you can see, the most important techie companies of the world are only built in 2 countries, in China and in the US. So the technology is concentrated in the more mature countries. But, for example, where is Spain? Where is France? Where is Italy? Where are the rest of the top destinations and hotspots destinations in the world? Where is Mexico? So that's why this slide is really crucial to us. That's why we need to create that global tourism system to give opportunities to everyone and to help those entrepreneurs to grow, and by 5 years to see this pipeline different and to see more countries inside this pipeline of technologicals. So, of course, this is very important. From 2016 to 2025, tourism and digitalization will create $305 billion in value. So this is a $1 billion opportunity. On the other side, it's not only about the profit, it's about to generate benefits. So we expect that digitalization will generate benefits on $700 billion as well in the world. That's why we have to act and we have to empower digitalization as our key driver. So the way forward to rebuild the tourism model, what do we need to do if we want a more powerful and digitalized tourism sector? Added value jobs, that's really important. What are we doing? As you can see, this is very important. Secretary General, and you will love this slide. Youth share the total travel employment regarding not only, when you see there are like the hotspot destinations. So you can see that Canada, US, UK, Germany, France, Italy have increased the number of youth employed in tourism. 23% of tourism ministers are women. 20% of government women are ministers, but we need more. So that's why I would like to be the Minister of Economy, Mr. Secretary General, just to lead by example, because we need more women on our political statements. But look at this, that is really crucial to us. The employment in tourism, this is Eurostat 2019, the employment in tourism is, the people that are employed in tourism, most of them have less than primary or over secondary education. So this says what the Secretary General have said. It's very important to create a top academy in order to help people to grow and to help people to give new opportunities if we want to mind that gap of people that are working in tourism that has less than primary education. So we are working on this venture. We are partnering with a Silicon Valley company that is called Eightfold, and we are doing a job factory. Why? Because of course we need to connect private sector, public sector, and of course people that wants to work in tourism sector. So we are launching this, I think, in some weeks, in order to help to recover those jobs that are in risk, and on the other side, to help those that wants to come to the tourism sector to apply for new jobs. Second of all, to recover tourism, so first of all, added value jobs. Second of all, digital and tech skills. So we have seen this. Digitalization has been super speedy, but we have a strong gap on this, on big data, virtual reality, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. So we need to train our tourism sector on these new technologies in order to help them to grow. And look at this. After the pandemic, their minister from Saudi, look the source, BCG. So after the pandemic, Boston Consulting Group did this slide that says that today, regarding education, we need to unlearn, relearn, and relearn, because more than ever, digital education is not our future, is the present. So that's why online education has to be crucial if we want to upscale education in tourism. And government must respond with that said. So, as Secretary General said, the Online Academy, and of course, sustainable investments. Look at this. Regarding venture capital on innovation, once again, China and the US are the top, by far, investors on green innovations. And look at this, 55% of the investors in tourism are looking for environmental, social, and governance investments. And that's why we have pilot with the IFC, with the International Financial Corporation, that, as you know, is the private branch of the World Bank, in order to develop pilot projects between 50 million to 150 million to recover the hotel sector. So we're working with them to recover at first. Of course, we will add step by step more countries, but during this year, we will give funds to India, Indonesia, Jamaica, Philippines, South Africa, Thailand, and Vietnam, because we need, of course, to work with the private sector, but to ensure that we are building a green strategy, a green model with renewable energies, including communities, and of course, to address the sustainable development goals. So, with this said, I just want to close to thank you and to open this forum and to open this conversation regarding why investments and sustainability have to be our new normal. Thank you so much. Do you want? So, our top keynote.
This is, I'm sorry to be out of protocol. This is my last chance to participate in Georgia in this kind of event, and I forgot. I really apologize. I want to thank to our main sponsors and supporters to make this event happen, and I will be a very bad guy if I don't announce it. To TBC Bank, where I was working, and I've got my first job, by the way, in this bank, and I saw the president is in this hall. Ajara Group, who was so kind to receive our guests, and also Hotel Biltmore, and of course, Ministry of Economy. Dear Minister, thank you very much for this. It's not Georgian toast, it's my duty to say thanks to you. To you, your deputy, Mr. Gennady Arveladze, Mariam Kruvishvili, GNTA, and all your staff who spent 26 hours per day to make our trip so nice and so unforgettable. This afternoon we are moving to Kakheti region to show our dear ministers and heads of delegations and our delegations and our friends how rural tourism is, again, I'm focused a lot on rural tourism, how rural tourism is booming in Georgia. One of the founder and supporter, and he will receive us, it's Mr. Davidson Gulashvili of this event, the member of parliament, and I want to give him special thanks. And so I will miss you, but let's try to make this kind of events much more time in Georgia, and I will be, use me like a Georgian, because we have a lot of opportunities. Tourism has millions of opportunities, and I'll really be very happy to have you with me in Madrid and other mentioned countries where many interesting projects are happening. So many thanks, and apologize again to be a little bit out of protocol.
So now, I would like to start the forum with our first panel. So of course, let's give a warm welcome to Nicola Vila, who will share the next panel. He is the Senior Vice President of Strategic Growth of Mastercard, and he would lead the panel on key insights for tourism sustainable investments.
Good morning. Can I first of all ask the panelists to join me on the stage, please? And so, Honorable Secretary General, Honorable Ministers, friends and colleagues, it's a pleasure and an honor for me to moderate the following panel on key insights on sustainable tourism investments. Before I do this, I'd like to commend the Georgian government for being an incredible host in this very beautiful country. We feel privileged to be not only part of this conversation, but also guests in this beautiful place. We'll basically spend a few minutes with a few introductions. We also have a couple of videos we wanted to show you for those who were not able to join us today. But let me maybe ask one by one the panelists to join. First of all, I'd like to invite Arlette Soudan-Holt, the Minister of Tourism and Environment of the Republic of Congo. Welcome, Arlette. I would then like to ask Pedro and Luis Rodriguez, who are the President and Executive Director of Sierra Blanca Estates, a leading tourist developer in Spain. And then I would like to welcome Pino Sagliocco, which is the Chairman of Live Nation España. Welcome, Pino. So as mentioned, two of our colleagues will not join us today, but they send videos that I will maybe start to roll out now. So the first video is from Azbeta Klein, which is Director of and Global Head of Climate Business at the IFC. Let's maybe roll out, first of all, the video from Azbeta.
Thank you for the invitation to speak with you on us today, and I'm sorry that we were prevented from joining you in person. I'm grateful for this opportunity to set the stage for a discussion on green investments. IFC is the largest development finance institution focused on the private sector. We are part of the Globalia group, and our aspiration is to create markets. So in addition to investing, we also work with companies, governments, and associations such as the WTO to help create investable projects. We already work with the WTO on a successful series of webinars looking at sustainability action from different stakeholders in the tourism industry, and we are very happy to continue that conversation. There are two sides to create sustainable solutions: those that create them in their operations, and those who finance them. So let me begin in turn, and let's have a quick look on why sustainability is important in the tourism industry. We collaborated with the International Tourism Partnership to produce the business case for sustainable hotels. Through case studies, we identified data-driven approach to sustainability in the sector, which includes the simple solution, reducing profit margins, savings, but also others, increasing revenues through product differentiation, future-proofing investor strategies, safeguarding against policy risk and market development, increasing value through green building certifications, and ensuring energy security. One of the key issues is to help debunk the myth that sustainability is expensive and available only to high-end hotels in developed countries. We know it's quite the opposite. There is money to be made in sustainability. According to our research, most hotel properties in emerging markets could reach 20% resource efficiency with very attractive return on investments. So how about the other side of the equation, those that finance green investments? Many investors, especially now during the pandemic, are realizing that the way we used to build our economies in the past is no longer sustainable. And they are looking for opportunities to finance green investments and innovation. And they do it through local and international financial institutions, through capital markets, through pension funds, and through other investment vehicles. And we know that investors worldwide are looking to invest in green investments because they know it matters. And they will do it in sectors that pick up the challenge and get it done. I know it's going to be a difficult year, but I look forward to the forthcoming year. It will be full of challenges, and I'd like to assure you, it will be full of opportunities. Thank you.
So sustainability is one of the topics and the threads of today's discussion. The other one is innovation. And so the next video and speaker comes from Irene Arias Hoffman, which is the CEO of IDB Lab at the Inter-American Development Bank Group. So let's hear now from Irene.
Hi, I'm Irene Arias, CEO of IDB Lab, the innovation laboratory of the Inter-American Development Bank Group, the leading source
development finance and knowledge in Latin America and the Caribbean. And it's such an honor to be here with my co-panelists, with the audience, and look at tourism sustainable investments. And thank you to UNWTO for moving forward this agenda and for bringing us all together. This pandemic has had unforeseen consequences, and for sure it's going to require a lot of effort to reset the economy and to create a more inclusive society going forward. And I want to share with you a couple of areas of opportunity that we've seen. Firstly, the experience that we've had in the health sector. In the past few months, we brought together the abundance of innovative ideas from all of the entrepreneurial and innovation ecosystem in Latin America and the Caribbean to solve the needs in the health sector, to solve the needs of the medical emergency that we're living. And the results have been incredible. We've seen an unprecedented number of entrepreneurs that have successfully partnered with corporations and with governments to make new ideas scalable, and new ideas that are relying on the technologies of the future, that are leveraging AI, deep learning, that are also combining that with the availability of new devices, the availability of genomics and sequencing, of non-medical device hardware, of telemedicine and wearables. And we've seen that if it's possible in the health sector, like, for example, two entrepreneurs in Ecuador that in a record time develop a contact tracing solution to manage the pandemic in Ecuador in partnership with the Ministry of Health, why not take that also to other sectors, including tourism? The second area is in global value chains, because they've also seen an urgency to reset a lot of the ways things were being done and to adopt new technologies to make the change much more resilient, more efficient, more transparent. We've put together a network called LACchain. It's a global platform for blockchain for Latin America and the Caribbean. And this has played and will continue to play a big role in making value chains more efficient, more transparent in terms of traceability, but also in terms of the availability of digital payments. So we are hopeful, and we also know that this new digital future that is coming at an accelerated pace needs to be inclusive, and that there needs to be a really concerted effort to make sure that these technologies that are being adopted are adopted under a framework of responsible use of technology. At IDB Lab, we've been supporting the venture capital industry in Latin America and the Caribbean for over 25 years. And this is an industry that attracts now over $4 billion a year in financing. We want to continue to support it with all of you, because this is going to be the source of the new ideas that are going to be so needed in the future. So this is an invitation to all of you to partner with IDB Lab, and let's ensure that these solutions benefit the tourism sector and an abundance of ideas for tourism sustainable investment. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and look forward to seeing you all.
Irene touched on technology innovation partnerships, and so you might be wondering why Mastercard is here today, right? And so first of all, introducing myself, I'm the global lead for our public-private partnerships at Mastercard. And Mastercard is a technology company that happens to have grown up in the credit card business. The saying within the organization those days is that Amazon is not a river, Apple is not a fruit, and Mastercard is not a credit card company. So we are focusing not only on the payment business, but also many other technology and digitization solutions, some of them, by the way, in partnership with the IDB. And so for the last many years, we also started to focus on how could we bring the doing good and the doing well together into the way we operate, right? And to demonstrate that, 5 years ago, we launched a commitment at the UN General Assembly to help financially include 500 million people around the world. So we saw financial inclusion as a way to basically stimulate the economy and basically stimulate growth. We achieved the result this year. So we announced basically 500 million people which were not part of the formal economy to basically being able from this year to use financial means and so receive and money and pay for that. We then basically raised the bar this year. We announced a 1 billion people commitment that we're starting to execute right now. So 500 million more to what we achieve, with 50 million small and medium enterprises and micro enterprises that we want to bring into the formal sector, and 25 million of those enterprises led by female entrepreneurs. So we're starting to double up on that commitment. Now then, when we were making those commitments at the beginning of the year, COVID hit, right? And suddenly we started to engage with more than 350 government agencies at the international, national, local level around the world to basically help address some of the issues provided by the pandemic. We launched 170 projects so far with government partners, 30% of which are focused in the tourist sector. And in the tourist sector, we started to provide aid and support governments in providing disbursements to both families and small and medium enterprises. In Turkey, nearby here, for example, we are working with the government to allow 1.1 million small and medium enterprises to receive COVID-related benefits and also get access to credit. We do the same in places like Chile, where we are helping pensioners get their pensions electronically as opposed of having to walk to a post office and so on. So hundreds of projects of this kind. The other type of projects are related to data. So we're working with more than 60 agencies today around the world using our own data coming from the network to understand what is the impact of the pandemic from a sector but also from the geographic perspective, and also what are potential recovery strategies the governments could basically set up in partnership with the private sector. We also are, especially in Europe, working with a few governments on the idea of tourist patronage vouchers. Can we, in other words, mobilize consumers and have them sponsor specific hotels, restaurants, or destinations, basically investing themselves into this type of programs. And we act, therefore, out of a bit of a privileged position. So our network, which is a global payment network, allows us to carve out data and insights coming out of billions of transactions every year, hundreds of millions of consumers that we basically touch, hundreds of thousands of merchants that we connect and enable to receive payments, thousands of banks which are our partners, and hundreds of government agencies. So our network is quite pervasive. And therefore we are developing a bit of a privileged point of view on the status of the economy and also some of the recovery strategies out there. So we recently published a report, a Global Insight report, that looks into two perspectives. The first one is what is happening in the air, and the second one is what is happening in the ground on the tourist side. And we consistently basically provide those reports. So if you look at the air, we see and we saw over the last few months encouraging signs of future demand, especially on air travel, right? We also run a global consumer survey, and the single most important things that people seem to miss, consumers seem to miss at the moment in a COVID crisis is travel. So people want to get back to travel, and that's good news. Progresses, however, across the tourism, economies in the world are not linear, right? Europe became, in our opinion, in the last 4 months, a bit of a test bed and playground on how tourism is about to recover, right? So out of Europe, we learned that collaboration works better than isolation. So the EU member states came together into developing a travel bubble. We started to show basically how tourism could be reborn and restart in the future. So we look at that as a sort of gigantic lab where we are launching a number of projects. So that's what's happening from the air. When you open up, when you start creating this travel bubble, there is another one that we're working on, by the way, on the Pacific Islands at the moment. You see some early signs of basically tourism, especially air travel, starting to be reborn. On the ground, we also look at Europe, and we saw how, for example, cross-border fuel spend has been at historical heights. So people started to travel across Europe by car rather than by plane, tanked, right? And this spend is the higher ever recorded into Europe. And it's higher, much higher than what you see into other regions, right? We think, therefore, that basically traveling on the ground has become another big trend, at least at this moment, driven probably by feelings of safety and of certainty, right? So I don't know when I end up in an airport what the things are that I need to do, but when I travel, I feel more safe and I've been basically doing it myself. And so this is something that basically grew into Europe this year. Not only certainty, but also clarity is important for tourist operators specifically. So together with the OTCP, which is the tourist agency of the region of Ile-de-France, right, around Paris, we set up what we call the barometer of tourism. So we put our data together with the DMO data there on 5 indicators, and we started to provide insights to local operators on how the tourist dynamics were changing week over week for the last couple of months, so they could start prepare specific offerings or specific actions to the type of tourists that were starting to come back into the city. We also saw that domestic fuel spend is growing, right? So again, domestic tourism is part of the strategy, especially in this normalization phase before we go into recovery. And also again, in my home country, in Italy, we saw how identity became one of the ways in which tourists started to restart again. Again, the restaurant culture in Italy has clearly contributed, if you look at our spend data, in restarting part of the economy and part of the tourism. We also saw how those small hotels who also have restaurants tended to grow much more than the large chain hotels, so the ones that didn't have it. So food culture basically contributes, and the culture in each of the countries and markets in which we operate contributes to the rebirth in different ways. So the story is not going to be about how people stop traveling in the next few months, but it's going to be more, in our opinion, on how behavioral changes drove the new type of tourism that we see emerging into those trends. Data, therefore, becomes extremely important. And something that we started to focus on, and we'll announce shortly after this session this morning, is a partnership with the Georgian government in the area of data. So we're going to be working with the Ministry of the Economy and with the National Tourism Agency in understanding through data spend how a recovery successful strategy could be like in the tourist space after COVID-19. And we look at basically making that a global best practice out of this country. So the way ahead is going to be very long and hard, that's for sure, and that's what we heard in the last couple of days. However, we believe that through vaccine, trust, and travel, we should be able not only to help this industry reborn and grow, but also to contribute to the global economic growth, which is very much needed at this point. Thank you. So I would like to maybe hand over now to Pino Sagliocco, with whom we asked to come on stage and cover and contribute on the relationship between music and travel. Okay. Pino, you want to come here maybe and speak?
Okay. Hello. Hi, everybody. Well, good morning, and it's a great pleasure to be here. And I'm glad I say something last night, which was able to share the music. I think the music and tourism has great connection, and I believe there is. I cannot believe or see any city around the world or any place you can travel around the world without music. It's festivals, concerts, musicals, theater, makes definitely one of the biggest enjoyment for anyone who travels around the world. And the tourism is very well connected. I believe sport, music and tourism is something which always should be together. I'm very happy to be here today and to speak in behalf of the music, because we always be granted, but I believe the music always been part of our life. I cannot believe our life would be without music. So I will give you a little explanation of what the music means to the world, and Joe will put some slide that will explain through.
Now you can hear me. Okay. So before I present myself, I need you to put your mind and concentrate on the following phrase. We have been educated to live in a world that does not exist anymore. This is important. I will not pronounce these words because I'm fed up with these words. I don't like them, and it's useless to talk about them. They're over. It happened. We need to change. We need to stop speaking about the past and of these words because it's useless. Worrying about the future is responsible, but it's useless. Now is the opportunity to start removing some spots, to start being better, to start being unique, being stronger, and being together. Today we're being together. This is what we need to do. And I'll go beyond. Now's the opportunity to celebrate and value real life, to stop being a zombie, to appreciate little things, to tell your mother you love her. Do this. To stop being a sad generation with happy pictures, to travel more and to listen to more music. I'm Joe Perez Uribe. I live in Madrid, Spain. I work with Pino Saglioco. I am head of marketing. I've always been head of marketing. I was born to work in marketing. It's the only thing I've done. I've worked in different companies. I'm like Chihuahua. The movies change, but the character's the same. In Live Nation, we throw 35,000 concerts per year. We represent 4,500 artists. We have 132 million fans. We sell about 500,000 tickets. We represent 132 festivals and 237, now 39 venues. Being in marketing is kind of easy. My boss always expects me to be 5 things, or do 5 things: sell, predict the future, know a lot of people, be a musician, and to sell more. That's all they ever wanted from me. I've done various successful campaigns during my whole life. I've won many awards and recognitions, but if I were to write a book about marketing, I would only use one word: curiosity. This is what marketing is. This is all you need to know. If you want people to come to your country or city, if you want people to come to your concert, create curiosity. This is all you need to do. This is what I get: a poster. This is what I sell: music, a show. And this is what I do. I create curiosity. I just put some dogs in there, but I made you curious. The engagement changes, even in a picture, even in a post. Create curiosity. On March 11, the world stopped in Spain. We were locked down. I had been wishing for the world to stop for a long time. I many times held my hands in the air and said, please stop. Please stop for a while so I can interpret what we marketers have, which is big data. Because we have so much collection of information from users around the world, but we don't have time to study it because the world goes on. Well, God listened to me and the world suddenly paused. And I had time, me and my team had time to study our data, all the information from all those 132 million people who travel around the world going to festivals. And I said, now's the time to start talking to these people. Now's the time to be curious, to ask questions. Because curiosity is about asking questions. And our role model must be kids. They're experts because they ask 2,000 questions a day. Adults ask 2 questions a day. Kids are more intelligent. We grow out of curiosity, and we should be like the kids. If you want information, ask for it. And that's what we did. During the months of May, June, and July, really just 2 months ago, we started doing surveys and studying our data. And I'll be so kind to show you my results. We have some case studies. There was a total of 11.2 million tourists going around the UK going to live music events, and they generated 1.2 billion pounds, 11.2 billion pounds. 70% of the people we asked say it's easier than ever to connect to people, but harder than ever to connect with people. This is important. You can take photos of my slides, I don't mind, please do, and think of them, because the world has changed. Look at this, the top things young people between 13 and 55, yes, I have called 50-year-olds young, in September said they cannot live without these things. Number one is obvious, the internet. Number two is obvious, and you're all holding it in your hands right now. It's your smartphone. Hey, look at us, the music guys. We're number 3. High sports, high football, we're better than you in this. Number 4, digital TV. Number 5, traveling. Number 6, sports. 7, newspapers. 8, pets. 9, books. And 10, art. 89% of the people we asked said of 13 to 49-year-olds globally agree, now more than ever, I want to experience real rather than digital life, because we've taken it away from them. And now they want to forget their screens and look people in the eyes and feel them. 84% of the people we asked say they are starving for experiences that put them back in touch with real people and raw emotions. All this streaming stuff going on is great, but it's not real. All this virtual reality is great, Fortnite is great, but it's not real. We want to be back to real because we're humans, we need each other. 71% say music plays a more effective role in defining their evolving identity beyond traditional markers like gender, race, or hometown. You know people, by the way they treat music and what music they listen to. 86% of fans opted to keep tickets for rescheduled shows, and that 2/3 of fans are keeping tickets for canceled festivals so they can go to next year's show. It's like your brother's wedding. You need to keep hope because the music will be back. That's why 86% are not giving back their tickets, because of course the music will be back. It's just in pause. And all we need to do is concentrate, and when it comes back, be better and be more prepared, and stop thinking about these 3 words I said before. 64% of fans are more engaged and attentive in the live music environment. If you fall in love with a live music event, you fall in love with the city. You can come up with me with any engagement tool, you will never beat music. Music is the #1 engagement tool in the world, and today, Pino and I bring it to you for your own use in your own country to design your own festivals, your own events. Use our tool, it works. The thirst for live experiences has never been more in demand. Let's design the future together. Let's start working. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So just to, as you can see, we cannot live without music. And I believe sport, music, and tourism should stick together and build those bridges, because I believe together we can. Even though we not live in the world we know it before, we know we need to learn the world from now onwards, the music, the tourism, and the sport always be there. So thank you. Let's hope we work together in the future.
Thank you, Pino. So let's move to our next panelist. So I have a question for Madame the Ministre. From a tourism industry perspective, how has your country been impacted, right, by the pandemic, and especially what are the strategies that you're starting to put together to drive the recovery into these spaces? Maybe also taking into consideration what we heard so far, the role of technology, the role of experiences, the role of culture, and the role of music.
J'aimerais d'abord dire bonjour à tout le monde
Thank you. First of
et
all, I'd like
peut-être
to
me
say hello to
présenter. J'ai
everybody, and
porté
maybe I
depuis
should
que je
introduce
suis arrivée
myself.
ici à TBC des couleurs assez vives
I have
pour
worn very
réveiller un
bright
peu les
colours
gens.
when I was here,
Il y a
since I've
un
been
mot
here
qui a
in
été utilisé
Tbilisi,
ici avec
to
récurrence.
wake people up. We've heard a word very
Curiosité.
frequently here, that was
Regardez
curiosity.
devant, regardez
Look
l'avenir.
ahead of you, look to the
Et
future.
généralement, le
And
code
in
presse,
general,
lorsque nous nous déplaçons dans ce genre
when
d'assemblée, de
we
meeting,
go from
c'est des
meeting to
couleurs
meeting,
sombres.
the dress
Ce
code
sont
tends
des
to be
couleurs de
quite
travail
dark
que j'ai au
clothes,
quotidien.
the work
Mais
clothes.
j'ai voulu un peu
But
rompre.
here,
Nous
I wanted
sortons
to break
pratiquement de cette
this
pandémie
trend.
du Covid-19 et il
We're
faut
coming out
être
of this
optimiste
pandemic, we're
sur
coming out
l'avenir.
of the COVID-19
Moi, je
situation,
suis
and we need
Arlette
to be
Soudan-Noro,
optimistic.
je
So
suis ministre
I
du
am
Tourisme,
Arlette Soudan-Noro, I am the Minister
des
of Tourism
loisirs,
and Environment,
de l'environnement et du
and
développement durable
leisure and sustainable
de la
development of the
République
Republic
du Congo.
of Congo.
La République du Congo,
The Republic of
c'est en
Congo
Afrique centrale.
is in Central
J'éveille un
Africa,
peu votre curiosité.
and I'm going to
C'est
awaken
en
your
Afrique
curiosity.
centrale
It's in Central
et nous
Africa,
sommes au centre
and we are
de
at
ce
the
qui nous
very
permet
heart
d'avoir ce bien-être
of what
environnemental
allows
du
us to
bassin
have
du Congo.
environmental
Ce grand
well-being, the
réservoir
Congo Basin. This is a
carbone de la
huge
planète
carbon sink.
après
It's the
l'Amazonie.
second largest
Nous
carbon
sommes
sink in the world
également
after Amazon.
le cœur des 10%
We're at the heart
de la biodiversité
of, we
mondiale.
have 10% of the
Et
world's
vous n'en avez pas
biodiversity,
conscience, en fin de compte.
and I think
Vous
people
nous
don't
voyez sur le
realize
catalogue,
that.
mais vous ne savez
You
pas
might see
que
it
c'est nous
in a
qui
brochure,
impactons
but I don't think you
sur
realize
notre propre
just
destin.
what
Parce
impact
que,
we
comme dit
have
Ban
on our
Ki-moon, il n'y a
destiny,
pas deux
because as
planètes,
Ban
il y en a
Ki-moon
qu'une.
says, there's only one planet, there
C'est pour ça que
isn't
mon
any other one. So
allie
that's why my role
tourisme
combines
et
tourism
gestion de la
and
durabilité,
sustainability
le développement
management,
durable, qui est un
sustainable
triptyque
development. These are
environnement,
three
économie
aspects:
et
economy,
social.
economics,
aujourd'hui,
social,
nous
and
parlons
environmental
constamment
aspects. And
de
so
la biodiversité,
we're always
mais nous
talking
ne savons
about
pas réellement où est-ce
biodiversity,
qu'elle
but
se
we don't
trouve, où
really
est-ce qu'elle
know
est
where it
préservée.
is. Where is
Donc
it
je vous invite
preserved?
à nous regarder
So I
autrement
would like
sur
you
le
to look
globe
at us differently when you look
de la planète
at
Terre.
the
Nous
globe.
ne sommes pas seulement la
We-
terre des origines,
It's
mais
not
nous sommes
just
également le
a
poumon
land of
aujourd'hui
origins, but we
de
are
cette
also the
biodiversité.
green lungs and the
Et
beating heart of this
paradoxalement,
biodiversity. And
cette
quite
pandémie ne nous a
paradoxically,
pas atteints. Moi, mon
we
pays,
weren't affected
sur
by the
342
pandemic.
000
There's
kilomètres carrés,
340,000
5
square meters
millions
of my
d'habitants,
country,
la
5
capitale
million
étant
people.
Brazzaville.
The capital is
5
Brazzaville.
millions d'habitants, il y
5
a
million
moins
people.
de 5 000
There are less than
personnes
5,000
contaminées à ce
people
jour.
affected
Et il y a
today
moins de
with
100
COVID
décès
and
à
less
ce
than
jour.
100 deaths
Donc vous voyez
today.
que c'est pour ça
So
que j'ai
you can
cet
see
optimisme.
that that's
Et
why
lorsque
I've
je
got
suis
grounds
venu,
to be optimistic.
sur
And when
l'Europe,
I came
nous qui venons
to
des pays du
Europe,
Sud, sur les
when
pays du Nord, tous ceux qui m'entourent étaient en
everybody
prière en me disant,
around me
mon
was
Dieu, nous
praying,
espérons
my
que tu vas
close friends
revenir en
and family
bonne
were saying,
santé,
oh, I hope you're going
parce
to
que
come
quand
back
on voit les
healthy,
chiffres
because when we see
de
the
la
figures
contamination qu'il y a
of
sur le
the
continent
contamination
européen
in
souvent,
Europe,
nous, on se dit, on a beaucoup de chance
we
d'avoir
say
cette
in Congo that we're
biodiversité
very lucky to
qui est
have this
encore à
biodiversity
l'étape un peu
that
naturelle.
is
Donc,
still
c'est
in a
pour
very
vous dire que
natural
venez
state.
nous
And
visiter.
so I would like to
Le
encourage you to come and see us. Congo Brazzaville
de
is
parterre végétal.
13%
J'aimerais
of
pouvoir
vegetation
vous
over
parler
the
de
surface
toutes
area,
les mesures que
and
nous
I'd
avons
like to talk
prises.
to you about
Mais
all
ça
the
va
measures
nous perdre
that
beaucoup
we
de
have
temps
taken,
sur
but we would
l'essentiel que j'aurais
take
voulu vous dire.
time
Parce que nous
away
avons
from the
vécu
essential points that I
5
want
mois de
to share
fermeture
with
de
you, because we
frontières,
closed our borders
5
for
mois
5
d'hôtels
months.
fermés avec
Our
quelques hôtels
hotels were closed for 5
ouverts. Nous
months.
avons eu des mesures
We had-
classiques
we put in place
portées par l'Organisation mondiale du
the measures that were
tourisme,
recommended
de la santé, l'OMT
by the
et autres.
WHO and by
Mais
the
nous avons
UNWTO.
paradoxalement lancé notre
But
destination
paradoxically,
Congo.
we
Je dis
also
lancé
launched our
parce que nous
destination,
sommes
Congo,
un
as a
pays qui
destination,
avons vécu,
because
qui,
we are a
pendant des décennies,
country
nous sommes un
that
pays
for
pétrolier.
decades
Nous vivons
we
du
lived
pétrole,
from
de l'air
oil,
noir, des huiles, de
from
cette économie
petrol
non
and oil
renouvelable.
exploration.
Et
These are
nous avons vécu
non-renewable
également de notre
sources.
forêt.
And we live
Parce que
from
le
our
Congo
forest as
Brazzaville,
well,
c'est
because Congo
13%
Brazzaville
de son territoire qui est un parterre végétal.
has
Nous sommes
plant
les
coverage
bons
over
élèves de la
13%
préservation
of
de
its surface
l'environnement.
area. We are
Et pour
actually
vous montrer la volonté de
the role
l'État
models for
d'aller
good
sur la notion
environmental
d'un tourisme
management.
vert que nous voulons
And so
prôner.
we are now
C'est
trying
pour
to
ça que dans mon
promote green
portefeuille, il y a
tourism.
le
And
tourisme,
so
c'est
that's
très
why in
rare.
my
Il y a
portfolio
l'environnement
there is
et il y a le
tourism,
développement
the
durable.
environment, and sustainable development, so that we can really achieve this objective, because we can't talk about transport without thinking about sustainability. We can't talk about development and inclusive development without the concept of sustainability. And recently we developed a strategy with the UNWTO on a sustainable tourism destination that is also responsible. And the Secretary General Zourab came to visit us in Brazzaville, and we have led the African Charter for Sustainable Development. And so I would like to rebound on what I've heard from you, that curiosity is the key. I really would encourage you to live this experience. I'm not going to put up a poster of our eclectic past with cliches and slogans underneath. Just come and visit us. Be curious. Come and see the Republic of Congo, and you will see what you can see in zoos around the world. We have 17 protected areas in Congo, and these are areas where we preserve the biodiversity, the wildlife, the plant life, this nature, this natural world. I've lived in Europe. I grew up in Europe. I was almost born in Europe. I'm nearly 50 today, so I have this double culture, but this call from nature led me back home, and I would really like to encourage you to come and see us in Congo. And I came here to take this opportunity and support our friend Zourab, who does a wonderful work of branding these green destinations that we want to promote, with Africa that has to be the continent of tourism within the next decade, which at the moment is being sold as in its constituent parts. We talk about North Africa or East Africa, but it's not known for example, the wonderful Congo River, which is the second largest river after the Amazon River in the world, and the Congo Basin is the second largest green lung for the planet after the Amazon. So imagine what you will find if you come and visit us. We have modern hotels. We've been having a lot of business tourism in Congo, congresses, for example, but now we are promoting eco-lodges in the middle of the forest, in the middle of the natural environment, but which respect the measures, the welcome measures that tourists would expect. So we encourage you to see us. We're launching our destination today. We have a new economy which wants to diversify, and as the ambassador of this, who is the standard bearer for the marketing of my country, I want you to come and see us and see how it is possible to reconcile ecotourism and inclusive development. That's what I wanted to present to you here today. And I believe that your question, I think you've had the answer to your question today. As you said yourself, it's not the big hotels which are restarting the tourist industry of tourism and small local businesses. It's hotels, restaurants, local communities. We are focused on local community tourism, and we are enhancing this, promoting this, and this is what is allowing us, paradoxically, in my country, to be launching a tourism industry in a very short period of time. There's never been so many initiatives from the private sector than in the last couple of months when we've come out of the confinement period. We've opened our borders recently on the 24th of August. It's the first time in 7 months that a minister from my government has permission to leave the country. Just to give you an idea of the impact of tourism. And I'd also like to confirm what you said earlier about music and the role of culture and music. Music is at the heart of our strategy. Like all cultures, we have folklore, and we mustn't forget that many of the sounds in the world, many of the music comes in the world from Africa, the motherland, jazz, samba, etc. So we live and are driven by musical activity. Nothing happens without music in the Congo. Absolutely everything has music, whether it be funerals, whether it be institutional activities. We always start with a show. Absolutely every time. That's how we govern in a general way. So I would like to confirm, absolutely agree 100% that music even is what allows us to exist. When we hold a destination dear to us, our cultural identity, the sounds that we emit, the music we produce is how we know who we are. And French is part of my DNA. I could have started by, I could have said Bossé. This is the Lingala, which is spoken by 80 million people. There are classes in Lingala at the Sorbonne in France. It's spoken around the world. I would like to encourage you to learn Lingala or to discover Lingala. And I don't want to hog the microphone. It says, in French it says thank you, and in Lingala, thank you as well. I think I've now tried to give you an answer and to awaken curiosity in everybody that's here in the room. I need investors. We have a wonderful river, the Congo River. Mastercard, you've shown us what you do in terms of diversification of your portfolio, but we would like to encourage you to be even more curious. Come and see us, and you will realize that there is another way of generating an economy, and this economy can be a responsible, sustainable economy. Thank you very much.
Madame la Ministre, what a great answer and very fascinating experience, and an invitation to all of those who are here and connected online to visit Congo-Brazzaville. Many thanks. I'd like to maybe now hand over the word to Pedro and Luis Rodriguez, and maybe ask them to touch not only on what Sara Blanca does, but also on the relationship between what they do and the communities in which they operate. Over to you.
Thank you. Gracias. Buenos días. Permítanme en primer lugar.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Allow me to thank the Secretary General of the UN, our host, Lukashvili, and also Georgia, for the very warm welcome that we have received. It's a great pleasure. It's an honor, actually, to be here today and to give us this opportunity to speak before such an exceptional audience, to talk about residential and holiday tourism. This is the very first step for residential tourism to start. But in order for this to actually happen, residential tourism at a particular destination, apart from good climate, from beaches, it needs to offer you a whole series of different ingredients, which I shall list now. Good communication infrastructure, roads, airports, sports installations, golf clubs, tennis clubs, riding clubs, international schools, universities, good food, good gastronomy, and of course security, leisure, entertainment, culture, and the friendliness of the people, of the local people. Now, once this is consolidated, you can see what happens. There's a third phase of tourism, which refers to the diversification of activities, of entrepreneurial activities. So therefore, residential tourism also helps you solve one of the biggest problems which tourism suffers from, that is the question of seasonality. Florida, for instance, in the United States, Algarve in Portugal, and the Spanish Costa del Sol are very good examples of residential tourism. Over the last 30, possibly 40 years, residential tourism has been the driving force of the Costa del Sol in Spain, and therefore it is the main source for the creation of jobs and professional activities and economic activities. It actually creates over 50% of all direct and indirect jobs. And basically, it also makes it possible to attract international investments. And it is almost like a life insurance in times of crisis, especially in times of crisis where no tourism arrives, as is happening at the moment. So quality tourism, that's what we're talking about. As far as tourism is concerned, we really need the best quality of services. And as promoters of residential tourism, we believe that to build and create the very best products is basically fundamental. So what are quality products? What are better projects? Is it because of the design? Is it because they're contemporary? Is it because they have technological innovation in the construction phase? Or today, the actual buyer? And this has been really quite amazing because we've had a lot of online visits, a lot of virtual visits that took place throughout the pandemic. And some very important sales operations were concluded during the pandemic, during lockdown. So what are they asking for? They're asking for larger properties with large gardens, with balconies, with terraces, and with security, and a very large number of common services and a variety of services. These need to be sustainable projects, and one needs to be able to save energy. So therefore, we need to build high-quality projects which will allow us to generate demand. A good project in itself will actually draw attention to itself, and it will create demand, and we'll be able to have success, not only in our immediate surroundings, but also in many cities and parts of the world which are very different amongst themselves. Competitiveness really is gained through quality. So we have actually developed some very high quality projects, and we have produced a branding project with Fendi Casa. Fendi Casa is the world leader in the branding of very excellent residential projects in the main capitals of the world. So their requirements are a clear guarantee that we offer a very unique project and a very good investment with an immediate recognition of prestige. The architectural designs that we present in our projects very much coincide with the very best architects of the world, architects designing the intelligent city because of sustainability, because of design, because of energy saving, but the kind of quality that the people are really looking for at the moment. We'd like to invite you to look at our projects in Marbella. Marbella is such a privileged area which is being very successful in promoting residential tourism. And lastly, as you all said, we need to reactivate tourism, because it really does create better communication, better understanding between the people of the world. It's a very important sector for the creation of jobs, of young people, and especially for women. It is very important in the economy of many countries, and also this is true across the world. Thank you so much for your attention. I wish you a lot of success, personal success, and success in your projects. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Pedro.
On inclusiveness, sustainability, and again, curiosity. So I'd like to wrap up this session by thanking, first of all, the esteemed panelists for their contribution. Thank you, all of you who listened. And I'd like to now hand over to Natalia. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Nicola. Thank you so much, Minister, and thank you so much to Pino and to Los Rodriguez as top investors. So as we are running out of time, now we will have three strong, lean, and short presentations regarding about how technology can help to address a more sustainable tourism. So I would like to give the floor to Antonio Santos, the CEO of Wanderlust, that will present the World Tourism Identification Card as a new way of understanding of how digital transformation can help us to travel safe. So, Antonio, the floor is yours.
Buenos días. Buenos días. Good morning. Thank you, Secretary General. Thank you, friends. Thank you, delegations. Thank you, Georgia. Es para mí un gran honor presentarles hoy aquí un trabajo de casi 4 años que hemos desarrollado distintos profesionales del sector turístico, comercial y tecnológico. Exactamente es el World Tourist Identification. El World Tourist Identification es un programa en el cual lo que hemos intentado es adaptar la realidad
is to adjust reality, that is the social reality in which we live, but also the reality of the tourist sector. For many years, and after a lot of effort and work, we try to discover what the situation is in reality for the tourist sector. For many of us, tourism has been managed very similar to what we did in the 80s and 90s, without realizing that the society and the sector itself and the industry has actually changed. As I said to some friends yesterday, remembering what happened in the past and actually trying to speed up my presentation, we established a small comparison, and the situation is difficult. It's like one day we woke up, a meteorite dropped right on top of this earth, and the dinosaurs, big industries, had to change overnight. What we did through World Tourism Identification Card, we have something which we should have with us every day. We may forget our wallet or our watch, but we have gone back home to pick up our mobile phone. We use our phone every single day, and we would like to have it all the useful apps. We are working with a twofold scenario: the tourist and the citizen. What is good for the tourist is also good for the citizen, and vice versa. If we use tools which are useful for our daily life, they are useful to us, but also to all of those people that surround us. So we create a large ecosystem, the World Tourist Identification Card. Now, maybe if I get a video going, you'll be able to see this.
Identification app. This app generates a digital identification of a tourist by making a derivation from the physical passport in order to allow citizens and control entities to have all the information one click away. It is very easy. Once you accept the terms and conditions, the app takes you to do a quick scan of your passport, to take an extraction on the photo page by reading the MRZ code that is embedded in it. Then you will need to register the data that is not in the passport, such as country of residence, email, and phone number. Then the app asks you to take a selfie doing a liveness detection process, which is a proof of life to make sure that the person is in front of their smartphone and that they do not use a photo or a mask to impersonate that person. Once the app compares the selfie and the passport photo through facial biometry, the tourist's digital identification is generated. All the data entered will be stored in a secure piece of software on the mobile device. With this, we make sure that all the information is safe against any attempt of cyber attack on a server. We protect all your data. Immediately, the app begins to organize the profile. Since our solution is privacy by design, you can decide what personal attributes you want to expose in the digital identification. We want people to be part of this digital transformation the world is facing.
Como les estaba comentando, en el World Tourism Identification,
As I was telling you, this World Tourism Identification card, we have a huge ecosystem. 4 parts. Identification. We are who we are. We can't be somebody else. And we want to make sure that this is used. Nobody can use my identity. And that is why we need to identify and validate 3 elements that are important, not only when we travel, but also in our daily life. Our passport, or our ID card, and our driving license. These are 3 points, 3 elements that identify us very clearly anywhere in the world. That is why we have international security agencies that have helped us. There's a leader company, Idemia, that helps us to deal with these questions of biometrics, identification of documents, etc. And then the other item we have in World Tourist Identification is payments. When we travel every single day, it would make it possible for us to pay. You buy a service, you buy a product, and have a relationship with us. So this would cover all the economic aspects. And the other huge ecosystem that we have in this app are tourist services, or business services. We all need to solve a series of problems. We all need to speed up exchanges at airports, the tourist flow, for instance, but even duty-free payment or in a hotel check-in, check-out, all of this needs to be almost automatic. And then another major service that we have also integrated a few months ago, and also because of the situation we're faced with today, and this is recognized as a reality, the question of health. Health. We all are worried about our health. And not only when we travel, but once we get to this country, we need to make sure that this country is safe. And the country needs to know that the tourist arriving is enjoying good health as well. So thanks to the help of a very important company, we included a program, eLife. Let's have a look at the video.
Due to the current health crisis, many countries and companies are looking for solutions to manage and recover people's health and relationships in an easy and safe way, focusing on the context of tourism and entertainment in order to provide safe mobility to citizens. Active management tools are essential within this new sanitary context in order to centralize and channel messages, protocols, and real-time regulations and recommendations, which are of great importance for both public and private organizations. This is why iLife is born, a mobile app developed by Connected Life, which offers a comprehensive service in terms of health. iLife as an international digital vaccine certificate. Available for both pets and people, its pioneer functionality is based on users' vaccines and test results digitalization and certification, as for instance PCR for COVID-19, which can be accessed by appropriate authorities anywhere in the world. Besides, it meets the European regulation EIDAS, considered a global benchmark. iLife, for both public and private healthcare, provides primary healthcare assistance, required information for procedures, official protocols, and forms completion, only when approved by government administrations and institutions affiliated to the service at your place of residence or destination. iLife, a help for helpers. In case of emergency or accident, and by means of artificial intelligence protocols, iLife helps to coordinate accredited professionals so that response time is improved and providing users medical details and medical record in real time in order to enhance promptness and victims' quality of assistance. We meet all security and privacy applicable regulation to protect your personal information. iLife becomes an essential and useful tool for people's everyday life. It enhances the quality of care in the event of medical emergencies, natural disasters, terrorist attacks, road accidents, etc. It's a help for helpers to protect life. In short, iLife is a comprehensive service that provides an immediate and tangible benefit in terms of healthcare protecting the world's population. iLife, the app that cares for your life. Available in your App Store.
En definitiva,
So basically, in a single application, we would have all the information, who we are, what we need, and this includes our identity for entering a Congress Center, a hotel, and everything we need for our daily life when we travel or when we're at home. Anyway, thank you, Georgia, thank you.
Thank you so much, Antonio. And now we have the pleasure to give the floor to Lisandro Menumarque, the Vice President of Globalia, who is in charge of leading an amazing venture that is how to recover tourism through rural development. So please, let's give a strong applause to Mr. Lisandro.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Secretary General, even if you're not here. Thank you, UNWTO. I'm representing Globalia now, the leading tourism company in Spain and Latin America. And we are going to introduce our Pueblos program. The Pueblos program had been supported by the Gobierno de España, Fundación Metrópoli, and Constellation, our technology partner. This is an image, a thermal image from the sky that can show how Spain has in the black areas a low densities and demography defined by aging and constant reduction of the population. This is an example, a great example of a word endangered of disappearance. This process increasingly reduces the development opportunities of rural communities and puts at risk of a natural, scenic, cultural, and historical sites of great value. This is a good example of an old and abandoned monastery in Burgos. Now we can see the growth of rural tourism in the last decade. More and more urban inhabitants are moving to rural areas, searching for new ways of life and leisure. They are looking for places with identity and closer contact with nature. This is another good image. In Spain, there are more than 3,000 abandoned villages. There are buildings and infrastructure that can be transformed through creative solutions. In red, we can see the population decline municipalities, and in green, very few less population growth municipalities. And this is a good example, too, about our Pueblos program. The Pueblos program is an initiative for the economic, social, and environmental recovery of abandoned villages through tourism. The whole pueblo would be organized as an integrated offer of accommodation and services by unified management. A diversified offer, the variety of locations and the different management options allow a complete and market-oriented offer. Each pueblo may have a specific identity depending on its character, architecture, place, environment, activity, and accommodation options. Here we can see in Teruel, in Valencia, in Cáceres, or in La Graciosa, different examples not of abandoned villages, but small villages that also can be transformed by this program. So we want to introduce a diversified offer: relaxed pueblos, entertainment pueblos, sport and health and wellness pueblos, gourmet pueblos, adventure, wine, art, nature, families, and seniors are different kinds of pueblos that we want to introduce to the market in the next months and years, because our goal is to transform more than 200 or 300 pueblos in the next years. A few examples: in Teruel, in Burgos, in Girona, in Extremadura. The environmental excellency is one of the keys of the project: renewable energy, sustainable mobility, electromobility, sustainable water management, circular economy with zero emissions. We want to transform the urban and landscape integration through the recovery of built heritage, integration of traditional and new architecture, bioclimatic urbanism, green connections, and ecosystem restoration. Here in Cádiz, we have a few examples as heritage and a combined of new architecture in Ramón Esteve. A strategy for the revitalization of rural communities should include art work for kids, agriculture cooperatives, carpenter students, or artisan bread, the attraction of new residents, rejuvenation of the rural population, avoiding rural flight, training new skills, promotion of women work, strengthening local services, and the access to new opportunities for comarcas or regions that has none. The local development and job creation. Local development and job creation, promotion of local products, ecological agriculture, local suppliers, residential economy, upgrade of rural architecture, growth of local markets, creating new job opportunities. The connectivity and smart solutions, as Natalia loved, we will implement high-speed internet in the pueblos, intelligent service management systems, efficient resource management, visitors app, identification, access to services, payments, and activity management will be on together in an app that will connect all the pueblos together. This is a pentagram that shows how the pueblos is in the middle regarding the connectivity, the security and maintenance, the services, and the infrastructures. We want that each town is unique due to its singularities and its location, but all projects will be the result of cooperation with specialized companies of the highest level to offer an integrated experience with the highest level of quality. It's an institutional cooperation between private and public partnership in collaboration with local communities and national governments. The Pueblos Program is an initiative inspired by the 8th European Environment Program and the 2020-2027 financial framework of the European Union. It is aligned with the priorities of the government of Spain and regional authorities in the field of rural development. Here we can see some examples of wine villages and a museum that has recovered the heritage of Asturias mine towns. It's a project oriented to the SDGs. This program has a positive impact in 12 of 17 SDGs. The Pueblos Program is an initiative aimed at strengthening the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. But it's a global vocation project. We don't want just to establish this program in Spain, but in the whole world, establishing cooperation agreements and deals with national countries and specific to growth, the urban areas and decline of rural spaces. It's a global challenge. The Pueblos program represents a pilot initiative that will be a reference for different countries and regions at global scale in the post-pandemic era. Now we see a good example in Saudi Arabia as an old town of Alula, one in Vietnam, one in Colombia, Santa Fe de Antioquia, and Coripo in Switzerland. There are good examples of small villages that we can transform together. As the UN Secretary General supports not the program, but the initiative of the rural development, he says it's imperative that we rebuild the tourism sector in a safe, equitable, and climate-friendly manner, and so ensure tourism regains its position as a provider of decent jobs, stable incomes, and the protection of our cultural and natural heritage. Thank you for all, and we wait to establish relations with different countries that are interested to transform these villas in a new sustainable rural development program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisandro. This is an amazing opportunity, and we're really pleased to have the ministers here because, as we already said, to empower rural tourism will give opportunities to everyone, and of course, bringing technology to rural areas is key to develop a better understanding on tourism. So our last presentation, but not least, after we go to the Georgian panel, is about another venture that is working with technology in order to travel safe again. So I would like to give a warm welcome to Fernando Ruiz, that is the International Manager of Megalabs. So Fernando, the floor is yours.
Buenos días.
Good morning. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Secretary General and the government of Georgia for giving us this opportunity to take part in this particular event. Well, we're going to be talking a little bit about the COVID-19 diagnosis. Now, we could really be talking a long time about the disease, but what we really want to know is how to transmit confidence and security, that is, feeling safe when we travel to a given country. We belong
Directamente estamos implantados en todo el mundo, con lo cual
a company that is all over the world, and we can offer global services. We belong to a company called Eurofins. At the moment, just for you to get an idea, we are controlling all the COVID tests for the Formula One races, and we're doing this with a lot of success. It's important to realize
básicamente el diagnóstico nos va a poder dar una seguridad.
I think we really need to know, with total security, with the visitor and with those people who are going to the different countries, we need to be fully aware of the fact that this is a safe place for us to go. And we can do this in different ways. There is a system which would be to prepare a kind of mobile laboratory. Why are we talking about a mobile laboratory? We're talking about the COVID-19 pandemic, but this could happen anywhere. So we need to know, we need to understand what the diagnosis really is. And this would be at the entry points to give the country sufficient security and the point of exit, so that the actual visitor knows that he shall be leaving or she shall be leaving with a test which has already been done. Now, this is important, especially for airports. We need to have this presence both in ports, stations, bus stations. Now, the speed at which we should be able to run this system. So we'd have a mobile laboratory, and this would basically imply that we can actually move it by boat, by train, by plane, to wherever it needs to be used. This could be at a border, could be at an airport, and then in order to develop this, set up this laboratory very quickly, and then to start within an hour, and then to start giving results. It needs to be a container, a 20-foot container, and it needs to cover all its needs. This is one of the pictures, and this is the way it would look inside. The speaker is being interrupted.
Diagnostic system for point-of-care use. It uses real-time PCR technology for the qualitative detection of SARS-CoV-2 viral RNA in 20 minutes. Vita PCR is a highly effective and efficient solution for labs, hospitals, emergency rooms, triage tents, mobile structures, nursing homes, and entry points like airports, train stations, etc. Vita PCR is easy to use, rapid, versatile.
Lo que acaban de ver.
Well, what I've just shown you is this. What you're seeing here is a small device for the PCR test. PCR tests at the moment are the most reliable tests for the detection of COVID-19, and they're fully reliable. Now, as you can see in this box, which is easy to transport, in 20 minutes you will get the result of your PCR test. Now, speed is important because at an airport or at a port, well, we're going to be getting a lot of planes or boats with a large number of people. These people need to be checked and tested as soon as possible. We can't get people to wait at airports for hours. So basically what we do here is we cover our needs. We avoid any type of risk for the country of entry on the possible tourists that are traveling to your country. So this gives the state, this gives the country sufficient security, but at the same time the visitor will feel safe. Now, one of the advantages of this particular system is that you don't need an expert to work the system. You need a 15-minute basic training course, and anybody can actually carry out the tests. You need an isotope to actually carry out the test, and that would allow you to get the result within 20 minutes. Now, this doesn't mean that we can't set up any other type of laboratories. Say large airports, large ports with large volume of travelers, well, then we can set up different types of laboratories. So the laboratories that you might find at an airport or at a port could be of any size, because we will be able to train the people that work in these laboratories or use these devices. Now, we can see that there is a lot of progress in this type of technology. And very soon we have the fast tests. Not in too many weeks. We'll also start having to deal with influenza. So we'll be able to have a rapid test to get an antigen for COVID and influenza. So basically, you'd get a result within 15 minutes. So as you can see, just by the use of this particular small stab, you'll be able to get a very rapid result. So you can do this at an airport, at a port, and this will allow us to have a safe environment for travelers, both for the city and for the traveler. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Fernando. So please remain seated. We will do a 1-minute technical break to put the new names of the panelists, and we will give the floor to the Georgian panel to talk about emerging trends in Georgia post-COVID era. So the chair will be Mark McCord, Chief of Party of USAID Economic Security Program, and of course, he would lead this amazing panel to promote Georgia as a hotspot destination regarding investments.
Please remain seated. The next session will start in a moment. Thank you.
think now we're ready, so please give a warm applause to Mark, who will be the chair of this last panel.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the Secretary General and to the UNWTO for this opportunity to highlight Georgia here at the end of this Tourism Investment Forum. I'd like to ask our esteemed panel discussants to come up to the stage, please, beginning with Irakli Nadarashvili, who is Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development, Vakhtang Butchkaradze, who is CEO of TBC Bank, Irakli Kilaradze, who is Managing Director of Colliers International of Georgia, Valerie Chikaria, who's Chairman of the Board of Directors of Ajara Group Holding, and certainly last but not least, Sebastian Molenius, Regional Director for the South Caucasus for the World Bank. And I'm Mark McCord, Chief of Party for the USAID Economic Security Program here in Georgia. And the only bad thing about going at the end of a program is that you always get constricted on time, and we're constricted on time. They asked me to try to constrict the time as much as possible to 20 to 25 minutes, which is not much time, because there's a lot to talk about in terms of Georgia's response to COVID-19 relative to tourism, but also the opportunities in moving forward with the reopening of tourism, and also the innovations that can come out of a challenge like this. There are many things about COVID-19 we don't know, but here's what we do know relative to tourism in Georgia. There's a superior product here. I hope that many of you get to experience that while you're here. Georgia is known around the world for its tourism product. And we know that tourism will reopen around the world again. It may look differently, but we also know that tourism will reopen here in Georgia, international tourism. And when that occurs, not only will Georgia be ready, but its product will be even better than it was before. And the reason for that is many of the people that are sitting on this panel here, who on a daily basis work to ensure that Georgia's tourism product, which is so important to its economy, remains vital and innovative. So, as far as the USAID Economic Security Program goes, and USAID Georgia, we supported tourism in Georgia for many, many years, and will continue to do so. I'm glad to say that our program works with all of these stakeholders on virtually a daily basis to promote tourism around the world, but also to navigate the challenges that we're having currently with COVID-19. And I'm very glad to say that Georgia has become a role model around the world for how it's handled this pandemic as a whole, but also what it's doing in the area of tourism. And we're going to find out more about that in just a few moments. So, I would like to really get into the panel discussion now, since we have very little time. And I'm going to start with, I'm going to transition over to my seat here, first of all. And Irakli, we'd like to start with you. If each of you could keep your remarks relatively short, because we're the only thing standing in between this group and lunch, and you never want to be in that situation, right?
There are so many of them.
That's right, that's right. There are more of them than us, and so we don't want to keep anybody from lunch. But Irakli, I want to start with you to talk a little bit about the impact of the crisis on a global and regional scale.
Thank you, Mark, and I think this is a very great opportunity of having this panel at the agenda of such a high-level event that Tbilisi is hosting these days. We really appreciate that. We all agree that tourism is the major industry worldwide, and it's moving the economies forward. And Georgia is really was in line in this trend for the last decade, and everybody knows the achievements that Georgian tourism sector has achieved over the period of this time, like 3.9 million visitors last year, which is 3 times more than the actual number of Georgian population. The role of the tourism sector in GDP in Georgian economy was increasing tremendously. The number of directly and indirectly employed people in Georgian tourism sector was increasing, and of course there is a number of reasons for this. And on the government side, I can say that the government was very busy in developing and supporting tourism development in many directions. And I can just give you a short list of the directions that the government was involved in. This is the development of infrastructure. This is the promotion of Georgia as an interesting tourism destination around the world. This is direct support of businesses in developing the tourism services, including hotels and other directions. Just within the one program of supporting hotel development in Georgia, we have a portfolio of 171 projects which government partially subsidized in order to have this infrastructure to host the tourists around the globe, and other activities, including the technical assistance of service providers, which is absolutely necessary to have the quality of tourism in a level that is attractive and interesting for international visitors. But today we are at against the reality of pandemic, which hit the entire tourism sector, and Georgia is no exclusion, unfortunately. And we observe, at one hand, we observe the united and global approach that the entire world and global economies utilize to address this threat, and the UNWTO event, which we are attending these days, is also a good example how the entire world community of tourism industry is targeting this problem. But also each and every country has its own tailored approach, because the problems are unique from country to country, and Georgia is no exclusion here as well. We've been very lucky that, first of all, at the very beginning of the spread of the pandemic, Georgia was quite successful and relatively successful in managing the COVID situation, and the facts and figures that we have, they do support this approach. We are among the 15 countries which EU appreciates as free, not free, but green zone to travel with less restrictions than in other countries. We manage the lockdown and the opening of economy very precisely, and in a way that to keep the balance between the epidemiological threats and the loss that economy is eventually getting. But at the meantime, we've been very busy with working directly with business which was affected mostly, and the colleagues at this panel, I think, would agree with me that we are in constant discussion and constant dialogue with businesses, including hotels, including restaurants, including other services which are impacted mostly with the COVID, including, of course, international organizations which are very helpful, very supportive, not only in terms of funding different projects which were never in the budget of this country, because nobody expected such turnaround of the situation, but also with the expertise and with the support of how we can even better manage the situation. Also, I would have to mention the bank sector, which is the biggest financial provision sector in this country in terms of access to finance. And again, with the entire bank sector, we've been almost on a daily basis in discussions how we can support, on one hand, financial sector, but at the other hand, the financial sector plays a dramatic role for all these businesses which are impacted. So this is probably the best example how government, business, and international community can do together the right planning of this crisis management. And I think here in Georgia we had a very good example of this success. And again, to finalize my remarks, we are very we're looking forward for very quick recovery. And just a couple of facts regarding this direction. Since last month, we introduced a number of new supportive economic programs for different industries, and we already have in our portfolio 11 new projects for hotel development, which are on one hand funded by banks, and investors, of course, have their huge contribution in the projects, and again, government plays its role, which is very promising to me that even in this situation when pandemic is not over, business is ready to invest and to develop with the perspective that eventually in not very long period of time we will overcome the crisis and the tourism flow will regenerate and will again play the important role in the economies of Georgia and other countries as it was playing before. Thank you.
Thank you, Irakli, very much. And certainly from our side, we have noticed the great cooperation, not just from USAID, but from all the donor and international community working together with the ministry and the private sector, other NGOs in this country to address what is really such a historic issue that none of us this time last year would have ever even conceived could occur. So it happened so quickly, but now it's like peeling an onion to reopen. It's layer by layer and step by step. And Georgia is navigating through the opening of those layers now, along with their friends from around the world. So thank you for those remarks.
Thank you,
Vakhtang, I know that TBC has been really involved in the tourism space. You provided a lot of information. A report come out very recently. Situation in tourism relative to COVID-19. Can you talk to us a little bit about the current situation and what also you see in the future as we navigate this pandemic?
Thank you very much, Mark. And first of all, thank you. I think these 3 days are very important for Georgia because once more it's stressed that the hospitality business is very important for the country. And today, I think a lot of our delegates mentioned that for the Georgian GDP, hospitality business represents around 19% of all the activities. Just to stress on the hospitality business, this year is very difficult, but our forecast, and Mark, you rightly mentioned that we forecast that from the next year, from 2021, we'll see recoveries, and from 2022, we believe that even it will be exceed the 2019 figures. But as Deputy Minister was saying, we have to have a good cooperation at the private sector, I mean banking sector, government, and the IFIs together. And till today, we are doing very well, and I can give the example that within last 3 to 6 months, we are investing and financing hospitality business and hotel business. Even if in the short term we see there will be problems, there will be cash flow problems, financial problems, we believe that this is the strategic issue for the Georgian economy, and we have to invest money, and in the medium term, in the long term, this is the key important issues for the Georgia. Just 2 words about TBC, what we are doing and what we have done. We financed more than 1,400 hotels in Georgia, in the whole country, and it's important that more than 80% of them in the regions and only 90% of them in the capital. And we financed more than 300 startups in the hospitality business. And as Natalia mentioned today, trainings is very important, especially in this business. And I was checking, and last 12 to 18 months, we sponsored and gave trainings to the hospitality business, more than 1,000 staff in the hospitality business, which is important. We see the investments in the future because this is one of the key drivers of the Georgian economy. I know that we are short in our time. This is the part of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And you know, this is such a fascinating topic. I do wish we had more time because we could spend another hour and a half talking about these issues. But most of us will be at lunch later, and so if you have some questions, I'm sure that we'll be happy to answer them then. But one of the things that you said, Vakhtang, that really resonated with me is that the financial sector in Georgia is not running from this pandemic. It's not running away from tourism. Actually, deals are still getting done. Investments are still being made, as Irakli was talking about. And with our program and the public-private partnerships and the other partnerships that we're pursuing, we're actually seeing even more innovative opportunities coming our way now than we did before, because I think this pandemic made everyone rethink everything. And so if there's a silver lining, it is that tourism will probably look differently moving forward. Maybe it's lower volume, but it's higher value, and the investments are very much something that will drive that. Speaking of investments, why don't we transition now over to you, Irakli, and talk about real estate and tourism investments from the standpoint of Colliers and what you see as the challenges and opportunities coming up.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I think to say in a positive way, we're living in a very interesting times today, and a lot of changes will happen, already are happening. On the global perspective, when we monitor the global capital markets transactions, today we see a big standstill, and the main reason is that the sellers that want to sell and the buyers that want to buy, there's a big gap between them of expectations what's happening on the global tourism industry. To give you some numbers, it's approximately 25 to 30% difference in their expectations. Of course, this gap will be shortened as time goes, and there will be more certainty on the market. But we still believe that on the global level, there will be a buyer's market on the investment side. Now, going into a Georgian focus and what's happening in the country, of course, Georgia's investment market is mostly driven by the development investments. We don't have developed capital markets. We only had one case when we tried to market a Georgian asset on international level. There was some interest, not too much, but we hope that we would have transacted end of this year. Of course, this is out of agenda at the moment and probably won't be back for a couple of years. But there are a lot of opportunities and interesting developments in the development investment, let's say, sector of the tourism industry. And I think when you talk about the development investment, that's not an overnight investment. That's a process that you have to go through, permitting, construction, and then the operation. And we see there that there is 4 main stages that the sector has to go through before that development is successful. And first of all, this stage is probably we are currently now is what we call an uncontrolled outbreak. And when I talk about uncontrolled outbreak, I don't mean Georgia. On the contrary, Georgia is a good example of how it should be managed. But as you know, tourism and Georgian tourism is very much dependent on the neighboring countries. And we have to see and monitor what's going on there. Unfortunately, we don't have a very similar situation in our neighboring countries. And Georgian tourism is vastly dependent on the neighboring countries. Approximately 70% of our visitors coming from the neighboring countries. This trend is changing. If you take 5 years ago, 2015, it was around 80% from these markets. Now it's 70%, so diversification is happening. Probably this will not continue in a way it was in the last couple of years, but diversification will go on. The second stage is what we call a controlled outbreak, and this is most likely will be the next year. So basically, governments, societies, they learn how to cope with this crisis on the medical side and on the economical side as well. Therefore, this is something will happen next year in our view. And the year after, what we call a medical solution will arrive. And when I talk about medical solution, I'm talking about the availability of this medical solution, because the solution itself can be done next year, but most likely production, distribution, and availability, this is something that will happen the year after. And then we have 2023. This is where we think that really getting back to new normal will happen. And what is this new normal? Frankly, no one really knows. We just can make only some educated and informed guesses. But definitely any crisis, any changes on the market create a lot of new opportunities. And it's up to investors and developers how will they will adapt to this new reality. And we see on the market, on the global market, some new initiatives, very interesting initiatives. For instance, there is now a lot of talk about hybrid hospitality, and where you are trying to combine several uses into the hospitality, where you can live, work, dine, and collaborate and meet. There are also very interesting and probably very popular rural hospitality. This is something also we'll emerge, and I think Georgia has a lot of opportunities there as well. There's also some opportunities on elderly hospitality, which is quite a big market, European market, and also could be very interesting target group for Georgia as well. So basically, this is how we see this process going. Definitely interesting times, but a lot of opportunities.
Thank you, Irakli, very much. You know, I wish we had a lot more time to explore the real estate portion of this and the development portion, because development, as you said, as you rightly said, has played a crucial role in driving tourism forward in this country. You look at the type of development that's happened here in Tbilisi, Batumi, but the development that those primary investments have driven secondary investments out in the region. Our program is very focused on regional development and seeing tourism proliferate through the regions. And so these larger investments are creating many, many opportunities for smaller investments. And you also rightly said that tourism is going to look differently, even when we are to the, quote, new normal is an old word now, but when we get to the new normal of tourism in 2021, 2022. But I think that we all have to be honest with ourselves. Maybe it needs to look differently. Maybe sustainable tourism, higher value, lower volume tourism is what we need to be looking at. And Georgia is very well positioned with a high service environment and the development environment to do that. So Valery, we want to transition over to you, because we know as the Ajara Group operating the rooms, hotels, and other hotels around the country, this has been a very challenging time for not just you, but for hotel owners and hotel groups around the country. So can you talk to us a little bit about how you navigated this uncertainty and what you see as the future?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to talk in this panel. Yes, Ajara Group is the largest, definitely, investor, and we create our own brand, rooms, hotels, and the standby in this country. Definitely, we went to the difficult time, but summer was also like the little promising because of the domestic travelers, because our regional hotels were like really packed and fully booked, and it was a big support from our population, from the Georgian population. But again, you know, like we still see like the big opportunity because it's not destroyed. Everything is still here. All the hotels are here. So we are continue to diversify our business and invest more in agriculture and gastronomy tourism. Also focusing to develop the new hotels in our mountain resorts, which is most popular destinations in our region, in Caucasus region actually, and all the neighbor countries, they were like they used to come always here to treat themselves, treat their lungs, you know, like the medical tourism was always popular. We are continue to develop our Abastumani project, which is most popular destination, especially for the lung treatment, actually. And we, yes, definitely we see the potential as soon as the borders are open, and we have to understand we should live with this virus. We should travel with this virus, and we should learn how to live with this. You know, like government gave us good opportunity because we create our hotel. We were hosting all the quarantine guests, and we understand how to host them, you know, like how to protect our guests and how to protect our staff. So that was like the big learning for us. And when we continue, we believe that it will come back. We also focusing to diversify the business and again invest more in agriculture and the gastronomy side. And we believe that this tourism will come back very soon, as soon as the borders are open. Thank you.
Thank you, Valery. And I think that the Ajara Group and the many other groups that develop hospitality properties around the country have been great examples not only of resilience, but of community development. Because every investment you make develops communities right along with your company. And the fact that you're moving forward with investments like the hotel in Abustamani says a lot about the future that you see in tourism in this country and the future that you see in agriculture is a connector to tourism in this country. So I think that this is a really important message today, that you're seeing people on this panel that are not running away from tourism investment. They are changing the way they think about that investment, and they're taking targets of opportunity for that investment, but the investment is still happening. So speaking of that, let's transition over now to you, Sebastian, and talk about the role of financial institutions in the further development of tourism in this recovery period.
Thank you so much, Mark. I guess the role of institutions such as the World Bank can best be described in sort of three ways. One is convening services, advisory services, and financial services. And just very briefly, in the convening services, I think it's so crucially important that we have events like this. We're able to bring in experiences from other parts of the world and learn how they are dealing with the COVID pandemic in terms of keeping tourist numbers up or adapting and changing to the circumstances. Advisory services, critical to take that global knowledge, those best practices, and adapt them and tailor them to the Georgian context. I don't believe in cookie-cutter approaches, but adaptation. And then, of course, financing services in terms of being able to finance some of the investments that are going to be necessary to sort of keep sort of Georgia's tourism industry alive and kicking and making sure that they can build back better. But allow me to take a bit of a step back. Georgia, I mean, tourism, if I recall correctly, it's about 26% of GDP, no? And so this is, and if I recall correctly, the UNWTO predicts that about 60 to 80% drop in tourism over 2020. So this is going to have a major impact on Georgia, economically speaking. And let's also be realistic. Until a vaccination is found, and if you read the science and the data and all the articles, it seems like the vaccination may start going into sort of production, if we're lucky, sometime around December, January. But really, the FT said it very well. It's not going to be until 23, 24 until the world is essentially vaccinated, right? So I think that we need to be realistic and understand that over the coming at least 2 years, we are going to go through some very difficult time. And you will see some tourism, you'll see a pickup, but Georgia is going to be competing, as many other countries, for that small residue of tourists that are still willing to travel. So I think three things need to happen where all of us need to work together, Mark. And it's not only the IFIs like the World Bank, but it's the private sector, it's government, it's really all of us that need to do this together. And the three things that need to happen. Number one, on the short term, I think that we need to continue and double down efforts to keep the COVID numbers and the fatalities low. Georgia has been just an amazing success story to date in terms of keeping the numbers low, and that is, I think, the platform, the trust that you can, because you said Georgia is a safe place for tourists to come. So we need to continue to invest in health, in testing, social protection measures, in economic relief and recovery. So that's number one. Number two is the medium term. Here, I think we need to, under this umbrella of building back better, I think we need to really invest in the digital economy, digital transformation. And again, this is really all of us. This is automated processes. So just for me to check in to this hotel and to walk essentially from the entrance here, there were about 4 or 5 touch points where I had to actually physically touch things, from opening the door to getting my pass to get a rest stop and the bathroom, etc. So all of these things can be automated. Where you don't need to actually physically interact or touch anything, right? So and this can be done at the airport, this can be done at the hotel, this can be done in restaurants, etc. And again, when it comes to credit card payments or check-in processes, financial sector, private sector, everyone is going to be involved in this. So that's sort of the second aspect, the digital transformation of enterprises. And then the third aspect, which is more of a medium to long-term agenda, is the ongoing investments in infrastructure that are necessary. And we had a great presentation earlier that talked about the pueblos in Spain, and I think something like this needs to be done, or it is currently being done here in Georgia, but I believe it requires a little bit more of a concerted effort and a coordinated effort. And I would love to see more of a platform approach where the various development partners, together with the Ministry of Economy and Sustainable Development and the Ministry for Regional Development Infrastructure, can all come together and have a little bit more, along with USAID Bank and all of us that are involved, and have a little bit more of a concerted effort to really invest in Georgia's future in terms of tourism and the infrastructure to either transport, municipal services, etc. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sebastian. And I think this coordination is a really key point. As Tengo and your team can tell you, our program and many others are coming together to support the private sector and the government as they navigate what are very realistic challenges. And you pointed it out. It's absolutely the case. We can't gloss over that. But we also know, as Valerie said, we have to learn to live with this virus. It's not going away anytime soon. The cavalry is not coming quickly as far as a vaccine. So we have to realize that the next 2 years will be challenging, but that we can't just close down, that we have to continue to do business in a smart way, in a sustainable way, in a way that peels the onion, but that we do have to move forward as countries around the world are, and as Georgia is today. Yes, please.
Just a very quick, very interesting factoid that I recently came across. We have this enterprise survey where we interviewed 581 CEOs across all of Georgia. A number of firms and companies, as you can imagine, are currently experiencing financial difficulties. Many are closing. Up to 70% have closed in the past 6 months at one point in time. However, those companies that went to online sales saw an increase in sales of 20 to 30%. So here you see a demonstrable sort of fact that shows that those companies that are transforming can actually even profit and come out of this stronger.
That's right, and that brings me to a couple of key points. I wish we had time for questions and answers because I know that that this panel would really love to take those on, but we're out of time. But just two final key points, and one of them focuses on that. Some of the greatest innovations in history have come through some of the worst challenges in history. And so the rise of e-commerce in Georgia has been, I think, exponentially moved forward by this pandemic out of necessity. But that's not likely to go away. I think e-commerce now will become a staple in Georgia. And other opportunities, different types of opportunities, will replace those opportunities that may not be there anymore. So the second thing, and what I want to leave you with, is with a quote by the famous American author Mark Twain. And I'm going to paraphrase that quote by saying this: rumors of the death of Georgian tourism are greatly exaggerated, because not only is it not dead, it's morphing, it's transforming into something that is going to be much different, but the product is still there, the service is still there, the visibility is still there. And as we chart these unparalleled waters over the next 2 years and the challenges that we face, we'll face them together, and we'll come out the other side in a way that is sustainable, creates high-value tourism, and it positions Georgia as the premier destination in the world for tourists of all types. We thank you very much, and we thank the UNWTO for providing this opportunity. I thank this esteemed group of panelists, and now I believe that we are adjourned for lunch, except upstairs I believe there may be an MOU signing, but we thank you very much for your attention today.
So thank you so much for being here. We are ending this session. Please, some remarks. Please do check in before going to Estamba Hotel for the lunch. And we will be leaving Cajeti at 3 p.m. from Estamba Hotel. Thank you.
I've always thought of Georgia as the leader of the next wave in terms of potential and progress.
The potential for business in Georgia is huge.
It's a beautiful country, and there are some fantastic people.
Georgia is a hidden jewel at the edge of Europe. Come here and you will not be disappointed.
The EBRD is a multilateral development bank. We're owned by 69 governments and the European Union and the European Investment Bank. Georgia's been one of the great success stories, one of the top emerging markets in terms of investment attractiveness.
BPA has been in Georgia for 23 years, and we transport hydrocarbons from the Caspian Basin to the market. We've enjoyed a stable and progressive relationship with the government. The key to that is the open dialogue, the collaboration with the government and the communities we pass through.
The ATC company manufacture parts for the 787 program for Boeing, making close to 3,000 parts a month. We have today a very good engineering team because they are very responsible, they are very responsive, very well educated, and they can do the job in a very high quality.
What we do in Georgia is not easy. We have constructed pipelines over some of the harshest terrain in the world, which means we need some of the best people. We have found the Georgian workforce to be highly skilled, highly educated, and they add value to our company.
Majorel is a global BPO company. We're a business process outsourcing company. Most of our clients are Fortune 500 clients. The enthusiasm and dedication and the drive that I experience here with the local workforce is unmatched. What we found very attractive for us as a foreign investor, that the tax laws are very reliable here.
It's a simple system. All the operational costs in Georgia are much lower than in Europe or in Israel or in the United States.
Georgia has aligned themselves with a lot of EU regulations, and it reduces risk for us as an investor.
Its long-term ambition is to join the European Union. It signed an accession agreement in 2014. In 2017, it moved to a deep and comprehensive free trade agreement.
It's strategic in terms of energy supply for the region and provides a route from the Caspian to Europe.
We've now invested, I think, something like 3.4 billion euros across a wide variety of sectors. You can see the IT sector, in particular, are really getting a move on.
We have seen evidence of the government looking at sustainable investments. Hydro is fairly well established in Georgia, and there is ambition to grow solar and wind, which we are very excited about.
You can see the same sort of buzz you'd find in the East End of London.
The coastline is beautiful, the mountains are stunning, and the wine in Georgia is delicious.
The hospitality, that warmth, is not easily forgotten.
Everybody are very friendly, like they know you for a long time.
It is a pleasure doing business in Georgia.